everybody, it's Sharon here. Welcome back to my channel for those who are returning, and welcome to any new subscribers that may be visiting for the first time. So I'd like to do another cover today, but this one will be for my next project, which will be I don't even know what I'm going to call it, a lush greenery, I'm thinking, journal, and I'm using papers from Antique Papery. So I've printed off 4 kits in total. There are 2 with journal pages and 2 that are backgrounds, and I've used them in different ways. So I have all of my papers here. I've picked out a fabric cover for my journal using this. It looks to be like an upholstery type fabric. I picked it up at my local Spotlight. It was in their throw out bin, their remnants bin. So I got it for a really good price, and I just love the colours. I'm actually showing you the inside, and it is reversible. I think I'd like it either way, but I just feel like those colours are perfect with this paper. So they are my inspiration for this journal. Now, on the bottom of this fabric, you can see it has this beautiful frayed edge, and this fabric does fray really, really well, and I'd love to showcase that. So I've decided to go with a soft journal cover so that I can keep those edges frayed and create some beauty with it, because I just love the look of the frayed edges. Okay, so I will flip you through those papers properly when we create our signatures, but for now I have an envelope. So it is I should have checked, a C4 envelope, I believe. It should be 9 by, I don't remember. So it's not quite 9 by, I think it's about 12.5 roughly. Close to 12 3/4, somewhere around there. A great size for a journal cover for A5 paper. So an A4 sheet folded in half. Now, I'm going to do something similar to my, what did I call it? My faux patchwork cover. And again, I have my big roll of polyester wadding. Make sure I'm in camera. Sorry, I have a limited space between the camera and my workspace. So it's a Tontine brand here in Australia. Picked it up at my local Spotlight, and it's 150 GSM, so 20 millimeters thick, and it's 150 centimeters by 200 centimeters, and I cut that to size to fit my project. I don't know about you, but I just really love the feel, the tactile quality of having a soft padding over or underneath my fabric cover. So, and I do tend to steer towards a fabric cover. I've done journals that have been paper covers, but I just really love the softness of holding a cover that's covered in fabric. So I'm going to lay this out very carefully to get a rough idea of how big I need it, which I think is roughly where it's folded. Ideally, you would have a much greater workspace, but I am limited for space where I am working right now. So I'm just going to do the very best I can to make it work. And I apologize if I'm not completely in camera. I'm just cutting off a section of this so that I can add it to my envelope. Trying to waste as little as possible, and I'm sorry you have a really awkward view of my arm right now. I have been thinking I'd love to get myself another little collapsible table to keep in my room so that for moments like this, I could pop it up and use it for cutting fabric and the like. I'm finding myself very space poor when it comes to doing things like that. It's really hard. You need so many things when you're making things like journals, and journals are not the only thing that I work on. So as much as I have 3 separate desk areas in my room, as much as I have 3 separate desk areas in my room, I have different workstations for different things, and I'm finding more and more and more that I'm running out of space. Maybe I should just cut back on what I'm doing, I don't know, but I enjoy it all so much. So when I first set this room up, I had a table that I was going to use for cutting fabric. I thought that's what I was going to use it, and one day I decided I needed to set my computer up in here. Actually, it was when I got my new printer, because I set my printer up in here. Domino effect. And then I didn't need to have my computer in here, but it made sense to have it in here because I was printing from that to the printer, and it was actually the setup process that made me move my computer, because I had to work with the printer and the computer to get them to connect. And I had the computer set up in a completely separate room. I'm just going to use my fabric glue, and I'm going to adhere this as best I can to my envelope. And I'm using the outside of the envelope. And I just want to glue it into place so that it doesn't shift around, basically. Yes, I had to set the printer up to the computer. I had to link the two, and there was a process that I had to go through to do that, and I was running to and from the computer and back to the printer and then vice versa, and I just went, this is crazy. So I set the computer up in here, and it's stayed here ever since, and it's actually been really fabulous to have it just here in my workspace. It's not something that I had in my old workspace, so I really enjoy that accessibility, but it is taking up valuable space in my room that I hadn't anticipated. So hence I've been left without a cutting area for my fabrics again. I didn't have that in my old workspace either, but it was something that I thought would be really helpful, and I still do. I have, because I have limited space, I've cut fabric with the fabric rolled up on my knee and tried to do it that way, and let me tell you, it's not that easy. Okay, for this journal I'm not going to do a pocket with the flap of the envelope, so I think I may just seal that. Okay, so I'm just going to burnish that down. I've actually started, this will be cover number 3 that I've considered for this journal, and it's taken me a bit to decide what I wanted to do. I started a hardcover. I was about to do a hardcover for it and realized that my fabric frayed, and it is quite thick, so I decided that folding it in on the cover would be bulky and it would lose that frayed edge look. So I decided that that wasn't the perfect idea. And I also started a cover for the same journal using an altered suspension file, and again I just decided that it wasn't going to work the way I wanted it to. So essentially I have 2 other covers for 2 other projects that are not complete, but I can certainly finish them off, which is fabulous. And don't be afraid to change your mind. If something isn't working, if you're not sure about something, just go with your gut and change it up. That's part of creating, is following your instinct. So I'm just cutting away the excess. There are lots of fibres with this wadding, so I do have a second sheet of baking paper over my, these are not the ideal scissors to use for this purpose. I have an extra sheet of baking paper over my work surface so that I can just pick that up and remove it. It does tend to leave quite a few fibres behind. Oops, and be careful not to cut into the envelope. I'm not sure I did, but I feel like I was very close. Okay. Oops. So that is the front of the envelope, and just wiping away the fibres. And removing okay. Now making sure I have my outside. I just want to check and see. I think I like that for my front. Oops, that way. Yes. Okay, so I can scooch that across a little. That's really pretty, and I love the way that feels with that wadding under there. And I'm just going to cut off the excess fabric, leaving myself a little bit of an edge. I might scooch across a little bit more. No, I think I'll leave it where it was. Okay, so roughly, I'm hitting my cutting board. Okay. Now I may have to trim this up once I have sewn it. So I'm going to cut this out there, I think. And this is just a piece of calico, not just a piece, because calico is my favorite. I just love the natural look of the calico. Okay, now you will see through it just a fraction, but because it's all one solid color underneath, it shouldn't be that big an issue. I could cover it again with this wadding, but I don't know whether that's going to make it too bulky. I feel like it will. I just feel like that's a really good, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. Okay. And I did consider using this as a pocket across the bottom, but it's not quite long enough. My other option is to put it down one side, which I don't necessarily, I'm not in love. What about wondering if I want maybe a longer piece of fabric for the inside pocket, perhaps. Just checking my placement. Let me get the fabric. Okay, so I got busy cutting the fabric and then realised that my video had stopped, so I apologise for that. I've cut a strip. It's roughly the same size as the smaller piece that I had. I used that as a guide when I cut, and I'm just measuring it against my envelope. I don't really want it any wider than the width of the envelope because I'd like the tassels or the fraying at the edge to show on either side. So I'm going to use this as a guide to cut. Okay, and I'm thinking I would like to perhaps just roll that over and sew just a straight edge across the top. So I'm just going to quickly do that off camera. I apologize. I've said before I'm not really set up for sewing on camera, so if you bear with me, I'll be as quick as I can. Okay, I am going to let you know I'm going to lay it on here. I do want a reasonably straight edge and I don't trust myself, so I'm going to just lay and fold, and I'm going to paper clip because they are what I tend to reach for. I may need a little bit wider hem. And this is just kind of using what I have. So I have a straight edge with all, the straight edge on the envelope is what I'll be using as my straight edge for my project. So just as easy to use that. It's here and it's ready. And my paper clips I have on hand all the time. So they are what I tend to reach for with when I'm sewing. I don't tend to use pins as much as I do use paper clips. And it's really just using what you have and what works for you. So just like you would use pins, I will remove these as I'm sewing. Gosh, this fabric frays beautifully. Now, I was going to straight stitch, but I've decided to zigzag just to make sure it has good stability in the way it's sewn down. So I'm just going to sew that. You can see that's holding in place and it looks pretty good as far as being reasonably straight. I'm not looking for perfection, but as close as I can get. Okay. Oops. Okay, so I've just sewn with a zigzag right across the edge. I have frayed a little bit from the side and I may do this end, and as you see it's not fraying straight, which means my fabric isn't cut straight. So I would like to straighten that up just a fraction so that I have a nice fray across the bottom edge. And I'm keeping these little strands. I'm not sure if I will use them throughout the journal. Haven't decided how or if I will, but I think they're really pretty. So I'm happy with that edge, and I'm just going to I'm just straightening a little bit. These, it looks like I'm shaking where I'm looking. It's these scissors. They have a resistance, probably have glue or something on them. So I'm sorry about that. Perfectly imperfect in every way. I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to brush this off into the bin. And I have one more side to fray up just a little bit. I don't know if the whole thing will fray because of the fact that it may be cut crooked, and it's not pulling away, so I'm just going to trim those pieces off. Fabulous. Okay, love that a lot. And I have my calico here, so I'm going to sew that onto the calico, and I just need to make sure I get my placement correct. I need to make sure my fabric is the right way up. I'm thinking about there. And really I've just lined up the edges as best I can with the edges of the envelope. And I was going to sew this on separately, but I think I can just sew around the whole thing if I can work my magic correctly. So my front and back cover fabrics are roughly the same. Width and same height. What I might do is I might just put actually I'm going to use my glue stick for the calico, I think. I just want a little bit of adherence until I can sew it into place. And obviously I can't do this with the front of the cover because I have the wadding on the front. But I'm thinking that should be enough. So I have quite a distance. I don't know if you can see in camera, but I have a shorter distance at the bottom and I have quite a long distance at the top between the edge of my envelope. You can see there. Hoping you can see. Yes. Between the edge of my envelope and my fabric. I can cut away excess fabric once I have it stitched together. So I'm going to sew that. I'm actually going to sew with a zigzag, I think, all the way around. And I'm trying to decide whether I kind of would like to go from the front. So I may go from the back or the inside. So I may go around it on the inside, which will catch the front cover, and then I may reverse it and do it from the outside of the cover as well. So we'll see how this goes. I'll be back, everybody. Okay, so I've ended up going around the outside of it 3 times, partly because I was slightly out with my alignment for the stitching, so I didn't quite cover the envelope properly. I'm not sure I've covered it completely everywhere anyway, but I feel like it has a better coverage. You can see here at the bottom, if I lift it up, I'm very close to the edge there. So I'm going to cut off my excess fabric and fray my edges. I'm going to add some glue around the outside all the way around to just seal that up, and I'm going to add some fray stopper to my frayed edges once I have them frayed the way I want them. And I will just mention, whilst I was sewing, I think it was this corner ended up folding down on the 3rd run, and so I had to stop the sewing. It might have been there. I had to stop the sewing. I had to unpick part of it, and I've just done a little bit of a back stitch where I've restarted the sewing and continued around. So I'm going to take care of that. I'll keep the camera rolling, but I may not have the sound going for this part. It may be a little bit time consuming, so but I'll keep the video recording so that you can see the process. So I hope you enjoy. I'll see you at the other side. Okay, I'm just going to add some glue around the bottom just to try and seal my edges as best I can, which may end up picking up some of the frayed edge, but I'm not particularly worried about that at this stage. Oops. And unfortunately I've frayed a little bit too much on the bottom, but I may add a little piece of lace or something to cover that up, so it's not like it can't be fixed after the effect. Okay, I'm just going to continue gluing all the way around. So I'm just going to apply this Helmar's fray stopper all the way around the edge, and then I will leave it to dry. So I've let this to dry overnight. I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. I thought I'd pop back on here and show you quickly how it turned out. The fabric stopper that we've popped around the edges has dried. It's quite firm, and so has the glue. And I really love the finished result. I think it'll be a beautiful cover. So thank you so much for joining me for this process. I look forward to seeing you all soon, everybody. Happy crafting, and bye for now.